familiar to anybody. Maybe that's always a good place to start. Other than the fact the price is empty, maybe you're not accustomed to seeing that much anymore because yours little tiles here are filled with transactions and forms and signings and all that good stuff. So maybe that's the one thing that looks unfamiliar is that it's pretty much blank right now. I am typing a little message in the chat section just so everybody knows it's here. It's great for questions as we go through the demonstration. I do have that open on another monitor, so I can be monitoring those as we go forward. Um, but just really implementing kind of a continuation of transaction task. I think many of you are familiar with it for creating transactions, which we'll do, and maybe we'll just do it in line here. We're going to create a transaction. So maybe this is a very familiar steps for you. So we're going to talk about the familiar and then the new. And one of the things I think you'll find that are new is this requirement to apply a brokerage template. Right, brokerage work diligently and a lot of time, energy, and effort spent in creating these. They're just comprehensive features of a client type, blank forms, compliance checklists, just things that are going to set you up for success as you create these client files. So let's go. I'm not there yet, so maybe we'll skip that one. We'll just do purchase contract, single family. And I just jumped to that one because, again, probably new. Maybe some of you have created your own personal templates previously. We could talk about how you can continue to use yours maybe in a modified way. But that might be a new feature, applying that template. And I'm going to give my client, my file a name here. I'm going to go with the old friend, Peter Purchaser. And if there are business rules around how you name your transactions. The thing I usually just recommend is just be consistent. A client name is always a good place to start. Subject property address is also a nice feature to include in that file name. It's keyword searchable, so it just makes it available for finding. So let me just take the anywhere out of here for a moment, and maybe we'll just put unknown, right? Because we don't know what property they want yet. We're just starting the process. I applied my template. Again, I'll show you that list again. I chose the purchase contract. I'm going to add myself as the selling agent. Do have some choices, but I will be representing the buyer. And I'm going to use this wizard, just 5 steps, prompting me for content, details, dates, contacts as I create this transaction. And it might just take a moment longer than you're accustomed to because, again, this data is being added. Content is being added to our new file. Just couple items. There's the name. I can change it at any time, or I can edit that. I can edit the name, just so you know that you can. So you can change it. You can add that property address. You can add those little keywords, identifiers to the file as you go forward through it. Status is something that we're going to be talking about a little bit as well. Everything, when you create a new transaction, the default status or phase is open. And that's just where it sits. Until it's updated. Whether you ever looked at this menu or not, but one that we're going to target is this ready for review status. And just introducing it now. I'm not going to change it right now because this file is not ready for review, right? It's just getting started. But just a couple of other items I want to point out. This little menu icon. One, because it's an essential icon just for navigating. Two, because it has this opportunity to apply template. So even if you created a file yesterday, last week, last month, last year, you can come back in and apply a template so that you get that foundational content added in. There's really no requirements here. You won't see any asterisks, no required fields here in the data, the details, the value, because it'll populate forms. I'm just going to click next. Again, hopefully this is very familiar, and I try to go quickly through this because I don't want to lose anyone to boredom or to social media devices. So dates is next. Maybe we'll just throw a date in there just so you can see that they are calendar fields. Right? I just pick a date from a calendar, and maybe this buyer does know. Maybe they're an investor and want to be done and dusted in a certain amount of time. So, right, they're just calendar fields. They will populate your forms, and in instances, they will drive due dates for tasks. So these milestone dates are also used in our task management feature. But again, really nothing required here getting started. I did add one just to show that these are just calendars, so you can pick that appropriate date. just bumping through. Next is contacts, right? I was added in as the selling agent broker, as the selling broker. I'm going to plus add here. I'm going to plus add a buyer, right? Again, for sometimes just the simple purpose of having that contact information populate through my forms. But certainly also, it's a searchable field. So if I remember just searching, or the brokerage is searching, um, we can find these clients by name. Legal name is if the contract needs to be populated with something else other than Paul, right? Maybe they're a trustee or a power of attorney or an LLC, and they need that information to populate your forms. Um, that's what the legal name offers, that tool. Preferred signature and initial is really part of the Authentisign integration. Right? Authentisign, that our proprietary e-signature tool, is part of this um, upgrade, if you will, to the full brokerage suite. That's really what's happening. This is the full brokerage suite of the transaction desk platform. And Authentisign is included for all users in that licensing upgrade. I'll add Paul to my address book. There's also an address tab here at the top. So if I know their current mailing address, again, just more information. If you have it, add it. If you don't worry. It's not crucial here getting started, but can be a benefit to save. And that's that plus add. So if that menu icon is the essential navigation, because every time you see it, there's a menu, you can edit, delete. Add is the 1A. That's because it is that important. We can add a contact. As we go to the next step, we can add forms, right? Here's the set that was kind of pre-established, because these are the ones you know you're going to need every time you're representing a buyer. We can certainly add more if that requirement or sales variable pops up. You certainly can add additional forms. And think of forms as blank forms, words on a page. That's all they'll ever be. If you come to here in the forms section, all you'll ever see is words on a page or blank forms. And I try to set that up because the next step is documents. And really, this is kind of one of the big fundamental changes, is that now you're going to really dedicate to adding and storing and retaining documents within the transaction desk platform for compliance and retention and just your point of truth as you're representing clients. This is really the space where you want to add this documentation back. Has Paul provided me with a pre-qualification letter? Has Paul provided me with any documentation that I need to immediately add? I can go to the cloud if I have it there. We do have integrations with Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, and Box. So if you use those cloud services currently, you can integrate with your transaction desk. You can also pull from your computer, and that's just this blue rectangle. And I just click there, and the blue rectangle takes me to my documents and desktop. This is usually the hardest part. It's like, where did I save that document? Is it a document? Is it a download? Where did I put that thing? Let's just pull one, right? I'm just grabbing that one and clicking on open just to show, and hopefully a pretty easy step to add documents, read-only PDFs, images, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, right? These are all document types that are supported. So you can upload them all. And that really is the emphasis. Please upload all the documents that you receive for a particular client. And that's just the wizard, right? Just pointing it out, highlighting. When I highlight, just for emphasis, can you kind of see what I'm looking at on the screen? That wizard, we completed the 5 steps. We're done with the wizard. And really now in our transaction dashboard, right? These are the things that we've done so far. This is the items that we've added. We can certainly add more, right? We're just kind of kicking off this this client journey, if you will. One feature we want to look at as well is checklists, because checklist is really establishing that compliance component. The setting the expectation that I need to gather these signed, ratified documents as I go through this journey with the client. Some of them are mandatory, the buyer agreement, when I receive it, the as-is purchase contract. Some of them are, if applicable. Is there one? If it's here, if you have it, add it. But right now, this is space. It's just a space to attach a document that I have. Is the one that I uploaded, was that pre-approval letter? Right, I would attach it. Yeah, oh yeah, that is that pre-approval letter. I need it. Here it is. and I'm going to attach this transaction document to my compliance checklist. Right, and that's going to set not an expectation, but it's going to notify the brokerage that that document has been um, submitted, and they have a chance to review it. Was it filled out correctly? Is it signed by parties if needed? Right, that's just probably due diligence, but it's in there. And this just hasn't refreshed yet. So let me just refresh this browser screen. So we'll see that that actually will turn into a watch. So I know that this document is now in the review queue. Brokerage can get to it when appropriate time. And that appropriate time is probably when I move a little further through this relationship and mark this file ready for review. And that's when the brokerage is going to take the time to review the documents that I've submitted to this checklist to make sure that I'm compliant, to make sure those forms are filled out correctly, signed by all parties, and all that due diligence to make sure accurate and correct. It's going to tap back on the dashboard. It's a decent little spot for questions. It might be bubbling up now, so you can type them into the chat if you don't want to go mic live, or if there's any questions about anything we've seen thus far. Of course, we're going to keep moving forward, but if there are questions about the steps we've taken thus far, please don't hesitate to ask them now. 3, 2, 1. From the dashboard, I'm going to go to forms. Again, hopefully another familiar place. This is a place where maybe you've come to often. I am going to, you know what, I'm going to add a form. I'm going to add that buyer's rep and make sure I'm going to get that sent out. I'll just type buyer in my keyword search, compensation agreement, seller to buyer, blah, blah, blah. It's probably one in here, seller agreement. Oh, here we go. Consent to transaction broker. I'm going to go with that one. If I'm incorrect, I don't want to set any wrong expectations. So please tell me otherwise. I'm going to just choose that form, blank form that I want to add to this. And maybe there's a working relationships or agency disclosure as well. There's always a good one, right? Exclusive brokerage agreement, single agent. Don't know if we need that. But because I can add these forms to my basket, right? So I'm just kind of looking for additional ones just in case, right? Maybe that lead-based paint, oh, that one's already in there. Let me just add one more so you can kind of see that it's filling my basket here with the additional forms that I want to add to this transaction, and then add them in, right? So I can complement the forms that were provided through the template. Remember, I can always apply that template if I forgot or if I need to, hadn't yet. There's that opportunity to do so. But these are the forms, blank forms. And let's go to that exclusive buyer. I'm going to launch into forms edit mode, right? Again, hopefully very familiar. Not going to spend a ton of time in forms edit mode, but if you would benefit or have questions about typing up a form, I can talk to you about, right, how to type or paste factual statements into the form. If you have questions about what should go in there or legalities, that's your brokerage, and they can better answer those questions. All right, but again, hopefully, again, something very familiar. Completing the form. Doop, doop, type, type, type. Right? I'm going to go through and make sure all the fields are correct and complete before we go on to the next form. Transaction forms. Maybe I'll just run through the list of icons here just to show you a little bit. If you have questions about any of them, adding a new form, saving, copying, printing to paper, right? If you want to take any of these actions, email, fax. Yes, we do still fax, help, right? So just menu icon, fonts, and clauses. Could look to see if there's any clauses here in the Office database, if there are. A clause can be used in what we call multi-line text fields. So if I get down to a space that offers a multi-line, which I'm not seeing quite yet, this would be other terms would be considered a multi-line because, this would be a single line signature area. That's a single line, but this would be multi-line. And so it says add clause. So you can create this little library of clauses system. A lot of times FAR has a few that if you need those, you can paste them into your forms. Times two, Office has created a whole bunch, right? So maybe we'll just add one just so you can see how that happens. You close it just so we know where we were again. I'm in this other terms and I just click into field because I can just type into the field and I could do both. I can type the factual statement, but I also want to include a clause. So I'm going to go on tab down again, right? I'm going to add a clause. office clauses. And here are the clauses that have been provided by the brokerage. So let's just choose one. Negotiations for contingencies. Choose that clause, and you can select multiple clauses. Again, you'll kind of see them being added to the basket. I'm just going to stick with one for this demonstration, but we find the clauses that we want to include. We click OK, and that'll add that language to our contract here. So content built in by the brokerage that you can benefit from. Trying to set you up for success when you're completing your forms. Make sure you're getting that proper language added in. And you can see I didn't add much, but you can see some content kind of populated in those fields based on some field mapping and such. But I'm trying not to make everybody dizzy by going too fast, but filling out the form. That was clauses here. Transaction forms. So if I want to jump from one to the other, I'm in the broker agreement. I can jump to the next form if that would be a benefit to do so. And just show you, because it will provide an auto save. So maybe some of you are cringing, like, wait, you didn't save your changes. It's okay. Save my changes and then goes on to that next form. So it is an auto save opportunity there. We can jump from page to page. Well, that's a 13-page contract. Zoom in, zoom out. Authentisign. This was the purpose of this whole journey through forms was to get here to Authentisign. And I could do it here, right? The pen, hopefully very obvious, but that is our proprietary e-signature solution. And why that's important that it's proprietary, it's ours. So it's deeply integrated within the transaction file, forms, documents, checklists, right? All these features are integrated with Authentisign. So we can click here and go right to it. Sometimes I like to just show that you can also, because this one I hope is obvious. Oh yeah, just click there. The not so obvious is if I'm here looking at all of my transaction forms, I can select the form, which I'm just going to select the one. I'm going to select that form. And through my basket, I can take other actions. If I want to fax it to the client, if I want to email it or print it, right? Otherwise, I'm going to send it to Authentisign. That pen is there. So I can select multiple forms. I can
Quick
send.
question, Greg. It will fax automatically, or do you have to have a fax set up?
It's part of the it is actually embedded into the system. So if you
And
have the recipient's name and fax number, hit send, and transaction just will send that outbound fax. If you're expecting something back from them to be faxed back to you, that's what this fax back cover sheet is. It's a dedicated number that will deliver the returned fax directly to this transaction.
I did not know that. That's new. Great.
It's part of the full brokerage upgrade. So people laugh. A lot of people laugh, but faxing is kind of making another resurgence. 20 years ago, they said faxing was dead, and yet here we are. So if you have that need, faxing, emailing, printing,
That's awesome.
Authentisign.
Cool.
Clicking on the pen, right? So this will drive us to the Authentisign. We call it the design step. This is where we're really going to prepare. This form is technically completed, right? I typed up all the fields. I've got it all typed up and ready to go. I'm going to add participants. That's what this little who's signing. We're going to add participants. Yeah, got that. We're going to add documents. All right, got that. And then we're going to use the tools to add our signatures and initials and other I call them tags, other tags that we want to put or place onto the completed forms and documents. So that's what that little three items there we're just talking about, a little bit of a process here. So I will add a participant. I'm just going to add one for just to be quick about our demonstration, but I'm going to add from my transaction. And I'll pull Paul in. You can see I can add myself as well. So if I want to participate, so there's two ways that you can sign in this approach. With this approach, if I add myself, I will receive an email invitation. I will participate just like everybody else in the signing event. I'll get an email invitation. I'll go through the steps and sign in that process, which may very well be your process. I'm going to take myself off though, and I'm just going to select Paul for this moment. I can also add additional participants because Katie, keep me out of the ditch. I think you've mentioned perhaps that you review some signings prior to going to the client. So you can add additional participants, and within that participant, there's this type called reviewer. So someone who doesn't have signature requirements, but is reviewing the completed form with where are the signatures and if everything's completed accurate and correctly. And we call that a reviewer participant. So you can add those participants in, and they don't have any signature requirements, but they can review the document, accept or reject it. I guess that's the important thing to know. A reviewer can accept or reject the document as written, right? And that will terminate the signing and with the reason why it was rejected. But a reviewer does have the responsibility to accept or reject, which is different than the CC. CC just gets a copy. So if you needed the loan officer to get a copy of the signed contract, or you needed a title company or attorney or some other party to just receive a copy of this signing event, it's all the documents in the signing. That CC only participant is the participant type to get copies of the signed documents. Reviewer has responsibility to review and accept or reject. Signer has a signature requirement, at least one signature initial requirement. So different types there. There's questions, please do ask them. We'll add them as needed. I have a buyer contact, and this map signers is this integration between Authentisign and the form. Especially when I start off with a blank form, I have one buyer, and Paul is going to be mapped. So anywhere there is a signature or initial known on the form, Authentisign is going to tag it for me, and I'm going to sign those signature blocks. Now, it should have done it automatically, but I just wanted to show you how we can also manually take that action. All right, so as we start scrolling through, we should start seeing those initials. We'll see those initials start showing up on the page. I know that there's one here for a broker, so just know if I added myself as the signing participant, as that selling agent, then my initial would populate there as well. Maybe I should do that, but let's just go through. Like, you have this choice, but if you want to add in that part to add yourself to receive an email, the other thing that you might be interested in here is a set signing order, because by default, when you have multiple participants, everybody receives the invitation simultaneously. So that's the default setting, simultaneous email invitations to all of your participants. If you want to set that up a little bit differently, if you wanted to have a very specific order of participants, maybe you want to make that reviewer participant one. So only they get the invitation. So they can review it and accept it or reject it as written. So if they do accept it, it would then be an email invitation to the participant two, so that they could take their action. And once they completed theirs, it would then be delivered to participant three. So it's this very set order of participant invitations. And if you choose this one, this will become your default until you change it back to this. We used to call it simul-sign, where everyone receives the invitation simultaneously. So two things, I guess. One, maybe it's just one thing. The one thing that always happens when you choose set signing order is that you get a call from signer three saying they never got the invitation. And you begin to panic because, like, well, I sent it and I send and added everybody in. Why didn't they get the invitation? It's generally because that invitation is still sitting with signer one or signer two. One of them have not completed theirs, so that signer three would be invited. So that's just, you got to calm yourself from that panic mode when you get the call from signer three, just realizing, well, you haven't been invited because the people signing before you haven't completed yet. So it is a very useful tool. You just have to have that one knowledge point to not panic when they tell you that they didn't get invited, because they probably haven't, and they're right. So I'm just going to go with set signing order. Again, if there's questions, chat section is a great place for that. Otherwise, I'm in the signers section. Upper right corner is kind of hovering up there, signers. Docs. This is the one that I've included so far. And I can add more, right? I can go to my transaction, I can find other completed forms that I want to bring in. I can upload from my computer. I can even pull from other transactions, right? So I can get additional completed forms, needed documents into the signing event. So I'm not just stuck with this one. I could certainly add additional. Maybe I should just to add one more so you can see that, yes, I can add multiple forms to the signing event. I can pull from my computer or the cloud, right? So get them in there. Get those needed forms and documents into your signing event. Here's a big one, especially for efficiency: assign checklist. I'm filling out a compliance document. And once this signing is completed, it's ratified, right? All parties will have completed signing this document. And I want to then just have it submitted or attached to that checklist. So this is a very efficient way for me to be compliant within the brokerage. I'm getting the buyer representation, hopefully signed. I guess I don't know if Paul's going to sign. I have a pretty good feeling he'll sign. So I want that signed, ratified document to be immediately attached and submitted into my compliance checklist. It takes all the other requirements off of me, because as long as I filled it out correctly and got it signed by all correct parties, this document, the first thing it always does is delivers the completed signing documents to my transaction file documents. That's the absolute first thing. Always go back to the document section of the transaction. In this instance, that document that's been returned will also then be attached, submitted to the compliance checklist. So especially when you're in the situation where it's disclosures or listing or buyer agency agreements, where there's really no negotiating going on, you filled it out with the terms. Here are the terms. If you agree, sign. Once everybody signs, it's compliant. So a signed checklist. And again, hovering a little bit for the recording. Hi, everyone who's watching the recording. Assign those checklists when applicable, right? Because you really just want the final ratified versions to be attached to the checklist. And then just moving on to tools, right? This is the tools section. Talks a little bit about how I can format some of the tags that I put on or that have been applied on my behalf, right? Because you can see Paul's here. Paul has been through Authentisign system. We call it system layouts. Tag those, but I'm not stuck with it there. If I didn't, maybe I just have some OCD. I want to move it around and maybe I like it here instead, right? So I still have an opportunity to format this particular tag. I can even remove it. If it's not what I want there, I can delete it. And I selected it. If you can see the difference, mouse, I say when it turns into the snowflake, pointer, snowflake. When it turns into the snowflake, I click, it kind of highlights or selects that tag. It gives me these opportunities to format. It is required. I can make it bigger or smaller if I did want to make it larger or smaller. I can add a name block. Not really space for that. Sometimes the date stamp is nice. Probably not in this instance, but these are different ways that you can format the tag that's been applied to the page. And if I wanted to always be that, then I could set my default so that every time I drop an initial going forward, it would have that date stamp included. So again, just little formatting features, whether it's a one-time or every time, you can set those formats. But by and large, like here, I'm just kind of going through and confirming that where it's needed, it's there. And if it's there, that it's in the right format. Looks good, right? So I'm just scrolling through. And this is all right now for Paul. Up here in the signer tools section, Paul purchaser buyer. If I click there, you see some additional options. And this is where I can actually sign. If I wanted to sign this and then send it out to the participant, that's my opportunity right now. And we creatively call it the sign and send. So if I want to sign this document now and then send it out to Paul, I can choose myself. And as I start dropping these items, it will prompt me for the terms of service because I'm completing my portion of the signing. This is me doing it, accepting the terms of service, end user licensing agreement, choosing my signature style, or drawing my signature, or uploading my signature because I have a scanned image of that signature and initial. So these are the ways that you can create your signature here in Authentisign. And remember it, and I leave mine because I use this quite a bit, but I would suggest once you get your set, just remember for future signings so that each time you go to sign, it just automatically plots that. It automatically plots that. And then I would just go through and do the same thing, right? So drop it over there. Maybe I won't do it for everyone, but hopefully you do get the idea that I have this opportunity to sign and send. If this is totally inappropriate, I'm going to go back to signers for a second. Add yourself. Add yourself as a signing participant so that you get that email invitation. Good time for questions, comments, general observations, signers, docs, tools. go back to see that list of tools again for Paul. Because there's some nice ones in here, and some that maybe not be 100% intuitive. And I think one that typically isn't is this initial choice and radio choice. Well, what does that mean? And it actually is very literal. It is the choice. And maybe this is a good a spot as any. Seller's disclosure, presence of lead. It's a checkbox. It's one or the other, right? So that's what we would consider a radio choice. And I'd click and hold and drag that over and watch how the choice duplicates itself. Because now they choose, the signing participant, Paul, chooses the one correct answer. I think I meant to put that on A. Let's do recording. Oh, click some enter, there we go. So this is the choice. I can add additional choices. So if you're in a situation where there's 2 or 3 or 4 choices, you can keep adding them. But this gives Paul the opportunity to choose the one correct answer. Maybe we just do it for both. We'll do radio choice because this one is if they choose the first one, they may be required to add some type of comment. And that's where you can add this text line to give Paul this potential opportunity, either required and probably make it optional, right? So that if Paul does choose option 1, it gives him an option to add some text if needed, right? Because it says explain. So text line. And by default, it will drop it as a requirement, but it's not required, and unfortunately, we can't say it's required if they choose the first one, but hopefully if they read and do it correctly, they're like, oh, yes, that, and here's the explanation. Or if they choose 2, then they won't have any requirement to type in because it's optional right now. And I just click on it, right? Pointer, snowflake, click. I can make it required or I can make it optional. And so just some nice different tools. If there are questions about them, please do type them into the chat section. We also have great tutorials, support tutorials, and videos about Authentisign and this design step, so we can point you in that direction as well.
Okay.
All right. All right, now I'm feeling pretty good. I'm going to click on next because I've kind of completed setting it up, and now I want to deliver it outbound for Paul's signature and see that document come back. Clicking on next. Another little option here for setting up reminders, customizing. We can customize the invites, right? By default. Was there a question or just a live mic? All right. Set reminders, be sent out in daily intervals, things like that, if it's a benefit. This one's nice too, customize. So if you're kind of typing the same invitation or words of encouragement to your signing participants, or you want to, whatever you type or paste into here, you can save for future use. So you create it once. If it's something you're going to use consistently, save it so that you can import that message into your conversation of that email invitation. So opportunities there. If it's time, energy, efficiency, consistency, customize. Otherwise, send. Clicking on send. Here's the interesting thing. We never left the transaction file, right? I'm still in Peter Purchaser. Still in this, it still says edit here. Still in an open status. I am in the signings section, highlighting for emphasis. In the signings section, created the signing event. It's now in a sent status.
Yeah, boy, Nico.
And I can take actions with that menu icon. And just remember, everyone, that you are, unless you have muted, I'm going to mute. I can do my best to help mute, but remember, if you have not muted yourself, you have a live mic. Signing section. And again, just clicking here, more options, resend, reset, duplicate, details, delete. But it's in the sent status. And I'm going to go back just to the transaction dashboard. Maybe I should go all the way back out to, you know what? I'm going to go all the way back out to my transaction desk dashboard. You kind of start seeing these tiles start filling in with information that and content that I'm creating in my transaction desk account. And while I'm letting you look at that, I'm going to pull up my Gmail where I just sent that invitation. Right, so maybe this is starting to look a little bit more familiar. Like, oh yeah, okay, I get this. This is totally customizable as well. Good, better, and different. If you have any interest, this little padlock, unlock the dashboard so that you can remove potentially tiles that are here that are not a benefit to you. The gray ones are the ones that are plotted to the screen already. The blue ones are very action oriented, create, start, email. The green ones are more information. These are the transactions. These are the forms that I typed up in those transactions. Here are documents that I added to those transactions. Here's a signing event associated with that transaction, right? So those are the ones that are there, and these green ones really do provide that information. Sometimes, sometimes it's nice. It's just making them bigger. Just click on that little green tab in the lower right corner, so you can just expand it, maybe just give you more visibility into it. But that little padlock in the upper right corner is what unlocks that dashboard, gives you an opportunity to customize, to be efficient, to be consistent. And yes, those were good words, but it was also just allowing an opportunity for that invitation to be delivered. Zach Practice from me. That's me, Zach Practice. Your signatures requested, Peter Purchaser. Exclusive buyer agreement. Okay. Peter Purchaser has received the email invitation. Peter is now being invited to sign. Peter's going to hopefully start the signing. And they're going to be presented with the documents to sign. Terms of service, consumer consent, supplemental terms. I think most people just click accept. And then hopefully start reading. That's always my hope, is that the clients do actually read what they're about to sign. I have no good data to suggest they do, but that's the hope. Click to accept the initial that's been tagged onto the page. And when they take that action, it prompts them to create their signature. Same idea as when you created yours. They have the same. For my participants, I like the tangerine. They can style, they can draw, they can upload. Right? So they have those different options. And like I said, most folks do. I uncheck mine just because I use Paul and Peter and Paula. And so I use them quite a bit. So I like to show that step, set that signature. Then it'll just take me to the next one, right? It tagged where that one went and then took me to the next. And it'll count. We're 1 of 13, so 2 of 13. 3, you can see mine. There is why I signed and sent it out. Right? Click to accept. There I signed and dated. Right? Click to accept. They're 4 of 13. 5, maybe we'll do some power clicking here. 5, 6, 7. I don't know why I'm counting, but 8. Here's our radio choice. Which one is it? One or the other? One or the other? It's this one. No, wait, are you sure? Are you sure it's that one? No, maybe it's this one. But see, and the text says blue, so if the client says, well, it made me. Well, it's not going to make them. It is an optional text field that you can type into, but you can also optionally skip past it. So we'll just select another one. But again, just this idea of optional. Which one is the one correct answer? Radio choice. And these are optional as well. See how they're blue? Blue means they're optional. And maybe when I get to another one that's red, that's really faint, but it's red and required. This is blue or optional. I don't know if I would, and this is usually what happens. People will just select them both, right? But they can accept that initial space, or they can decline it or cancel it. I'm not reading it well enough, but I bet you most people do that, whether it's accurate or correct. Probably most people do that. And maybe this would be a better radio choice as opposed to 2 optional initials. But that's where we are right now. We can talk about that as we go forward, but finalizing the document, completing the signing event. Wait, I'm not done. Let me make sure I signed it correctly. Right, I can come back. I can finish, upper right. I can reject, lower right. I can take actions. If I exit, if I come back, I got to start all over. So exiting here would restart the signing event the next time I attempted to sign. Finish, complete. Now, a bunch of actions are going to be taken. First, you're going to be prompted for your experience. I always just love to tell our programmers, we love authenticity. Because we do get these. They go right into a support queue, feedback queue that is reviewed by our teams, I think monthly, maybe bi-weekly, something like that. The other thing that's happened, let me go back here for a second, is that email is being distributed to all the signing participants and reviewers. So anyone who signed or reviewed is going to get an email with access. If I added any CC only participants, they would also receive that carbon copy on this on this completed email. So I am getting those email. Let's get that out of the way. I think more importantly for our demonstration here, as I come back to my agent dashboard and I re-access my transaction file for Peter Purchaser, I'll see that the documents were automatically delivered into my transaction. And in this case, were also submitted. One of them was submitted, right? The buyer agency was submitted, the lead-based wasn't. I can see that lead-based in my folder here. Fannie Mae disclosure of lead-based. If I do need to submit it, if this is actually a required document that I do want to submit, I do have that opportunity to. And if I don't see it in this list, but I think it's something that the brokerage should have an opportunity to review, I don't see it in here. I check this box. I don't have a checklist item. And I can submit it in that capacity. And it's actually going to submit it into the checklist, but just added kind of another line item to this particular transaction. It won't be, that item won't be added the next time I apply the template. But for this instance, that additional checklist item has been added to my compliance. Now let's just take a look. Checklist. Right, this is your compliance component. I've submitted it. Okay, that's waiting review. My pre-approval letter, it's been submitted. Continue to scroll down, and we'll see this lead-based paint one at the very bottom. The one that I dropped in there, I didn't have a specific checklist item that I thought was of value, so I added it down here into that checklist. Again, this is a one-off. This is a one-time to add to this checklist. The next time I apply the template, it will not include that checklist item. Checklist compliance. Making sure I'm compliant. How do I make sure I'm compliant? It's by adding all these documents back to my transaction. And if you like folders, like, let me just add some folders here so I can organize if I'm going to have that many documents in my transaction, I want to add little folders so that I can organize better. If you like those, you can just add a folder, maybe email correspondence, photos, I don't know, call it miscellaneous, MISC, save, right? And it's going to create this folder so that I can move documents into that folder. Just want to kind of keep a tidy inbox here, because this becomes a point of truth. Everything that you receive, that I receive for Peter Purchaser, I'm going to add to this documents of this transaction. Some of those I'll attach to the checklist. I get a lot of stuff from Peter, some stuff I need, some things I don't need, but I got them anyway. So I'm going to store them here. But some of them are like those mandatories, those absolute mandatory documents. The way I look at this, and I don't mean this disrespectfully because I was a licensed realtor for a very long time in Texas. If I want to get paid at the end, I see Peter through this journey to closing and funding and disbursement. I want to make sure that all my mandatory documents are here, attached, and approved. As an agent, what I'm looking for is green thumbs up. That means I know that the brokerage has looked at it, they've reviewed it, and they've approved it. So my best, I would love to see this completion bar at somewhere near 100% complete and a lot of green thumbs up because my documents have been approved by the brokerage and they will be retained in this transaction for those required retention periods. So compliance checklist for that capacity. Now that I have attached these documents, if we've moved forward to a particular phase, then I'm going to start determining. And brokers, please jump in at the appropriate timing to change this status, because the brokerage is filtering for the status. And one thing I didn't mention earlier, I should have emphasized earlier, think of your transactions now as office transactions. Yes, I've created it myself, my client, I'm representing them, but the brokerage has visibility and administrative access to this transaction file so that they can review documents, take actions within this file to make sure that we're compliant as me as an agent, there as a brokerage, to make sure that we are complementing each other and collaborating to make sure that we are managing this office transaction in a very efficient, consistent, and scalable way.
And that's right, Greg. And I get an email the second you hit review, guys. So if you want me to review it, it goes right to my email, says, please review. I log in, I review. If it looks good, I'll mark it accordingly.
And that may be just something to decide too, just if there is a status here, that would be a benefit, or if you wanted to add a new one, Scott. So when you completed your action, you changed it to something to notify the next responsible party to take their action. So that this is a customizable list that we can add appropriate terms that people are comfortable with and recognize. So that's an item that might be a benefit going forward.
Right.
Dashboard, questions, comments, general observations, anything we saw, anything we didn't see, anything you'd like to see again in the little bit of time we have remaining. Because we'll be very mindful, very appreciative of this opportunity to present. I know you all have another meeting to continue on, so
And guys,
please.
there's a lot more behind this too. So this is just the basics, to see where, as far as transaction desk, most of you guys know it. Some of you have some questions still, and this is the best person to talk to. But there's a lot of features that we're going to be incorporating that you'll see. It's endless.
But within that familiar too, right? Hopefully, like he said, Scott, this is most of this maybe creating transactions, a very familiar activity. Probably the two that are not as familiar are these two. This is really what's being from a brokerage standpoint, from a compliance standpoint, from a transaction desk. These are the two main features being implemented. Brokers want to keep all their documentation here and keep everybody compliant using those
Right.
checklists.
Hey, Greg, would you be able to quickly explain what a cloud CMA is?
Yeah, I mean, in the kind of the 90-second elevator speech, Cloud CMA is a fantastic tool to create competitive market analysis. So that when you're going to that listing or trying to prepare an offer, you use the Cloud CMA to pull all that data in. I don't know all the data points, but know that all the data in CMA is integrated with local MLSs to pull all of that data, sold data, pending data, days on market, all that data that is captured in the MLS and presented in a very intuitive way, so that when you are preparing that listing agreement to give a proposed list price, or you're putting together an offer and a competitive offer, that's where Cloud CMA comes in. Integrated within our
Yeah, I mean,
products so they can
basically, it's
use that
classic
tool.
CMA that we had. Yeah, classic CMA that everybody's used to.
Gotcha.
The cloud one that's included with this program, guys, is like the premier version of it. It really is, and
And it's just going to be more fully
you'll be able to
integrated as you
do your
continue to see
comparables.
our products, because right now you can maybe get this idea that these are all kind of separate products. If I want classic CMA, I log into that account. If I want transaction desk, I log into that account. If I want to use front office, or I go to that account. We have all these separate accounts. What you'll find in Cloud CMA, and as we go forward in Cloud Front Office and Cloud Transact, right, you'll have one login and you'll be able to go to all your tools. So the Cloud CMA is the more modern approach, unified platform. So you're going to really see those nice integrations with all of your accounts in one place, rather than scattered around and bookmarked and such. You see all one place with all those tools that you're accustomed to, and more modern features that are being enhanced and added all the time. So I think that's one of the biggest changes you'll see. Is like, wow, I log in one place and I have access to all of these tools, and that
Yeah,
cloud is there now, front office is there now, transaction desk will be there soon. So it's just going to be this nice place. We call it the unified login. You log in once and bam, you have all your tools integrated, and it's just a superior experience.
right. And thank you very much, Greg. And then that's what he said. I mean, listen, this is just 10% of what this platform offers. You'll be able to keep track of all your sales. You'll be able to request DAs. The back office will have a website through this. It's an entire CMA. I mean, you're gonna have a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, the timing, so he can only go off what he's able to do with timing. But there's so much more than just this. So
But keep this as the familiar, right? Because every time we add something new, we want to kind of touchstone with our familiar. So hopefully very familiar, but we're adding a couple of tools to just hopefully everyone is then on the same place. One point of truth. Agent, if it's there, the broker can see it. Everyone can see the same thing at the same time. And that's one of the values of this full brokerage suite. Just where is it? You don't have to ask yourself that anymore. No, it's in transaction desk. It's there. You know it's there because it was added by you or the admin or the appropriate party. So
all right. Well, we thank you so much, Greg. Anybody have any questions before Greg goes? All
And I
right.
could
I
stop and
do,
I could,
like you said, I'm sorry, I do, like you said, but I pretty much, I'm familiar. The issue that I was having was when I went to send, let's say I have two buyers, husband and wife. Um, that was, it gives me always problem. It always says, no, I receive it, but I didn't receive it. So I'm always in that dilemma. That's probably my issue. But now I guess I just figure out.
you're referring to Authentisign and sending out
Yeah, I'm
invitations
saying
and
the sign. Yeah, I'm pretty, familiar with uploading and bringing forms and adding forms, but it's the when you have, like you said, multiple signers, and they get at the same time, or because I used to use app files, and one will get it, then the other one will get it. It was like a sequence.
I think I
yeah,
might have the answer to that, Orlando. If you're sending it to the same email, what happens
No,
is
different emails. The
okay.
husband has one, the wife has another email when it comes, or it could be whatever. And then I want to send it, like you said, that should go simultaneously and they get at the same time.
I see.
that is default. That's how it's going to send the invitations. If you don't make any changes to the delivery method, then they will receive the invitations at the same time. If you set the order, you have to physically check that little toggle to set that order. But if you don't, then everyone receives the invitation at the same time. Good, bad, or different. Depending, I know a lot of people use Gmail. Every once in a while, Gmail will filter the Authentisign invitation to the promotions tab. For whatever reason, it even happens to me now. Even I've sent myself, and maybe because I have sent myself 1,000 of these, every once in a while, one will get filtered to that promotions tab. And just occasionally, it'll happen. It'll go to a junk or bulk or spam or promotions. Um, the other thing not as
Okay.
common anymore that sometimes happens, people set up like autoresponders. I've never received an email from this address before. Can you prove that you're a human? Right? It'll kind of do that autoresponder. And of course, Authenticsign's not human, so it doesn't respond to their autoresponder, and that can cause it as well. Those are the two kind of like outliers if they're not getting it. But if it is an issue, we can certainly bring it up to our tech support team just to see they can track it a little bit more thoroughly, like where it went and what happened. I would start
Awesome.
there. I would always start with the other inbox. Everyone, and we always want it to go right to that standard inbox, but it does at times get filtered to these other spots.
All right. Well, listen, Greg, I really appreciate your time and efforts, and we look forward to really growing with this platform.
That was fantastic. Just let me know I can continue to best assist. And until we webinar again, I hope you have a web-tastic day.
You too. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.